And a happy Tuesday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. It was probably a bit of a restless overnight period if you were like myself and you got awoken by a very loud clap of thunder. Nonetheless, all of those showers and those storms have fizzled out of the picture, and that was one of our main rain chances that we were going to talk about for the work week ahead. There's one that is more impressive that is going to lie ahead as we go into Thursday morning. So we'll talk about what we are expecting in the form of that rain chance as we go into the tail end of the work week, and we'll also talk about what weather will be in store before we get into that and take a look at what could be ahead as we go into the beginning of next week as well. So here's a look at your 24-hour rainfall totals. Whenever we get something in the way of a widespread rain event, we always do like to recap how much rain we got. And I wish we could have the luxury of saying we got as much rain as northwestern and western Georgia. Peachtree City, LaGrange, up to even areas just outside of our periphery, Griffin, Zebulon, and as you get areas of kind of north of LaGrange, maybe getting closer over to Noonan, where you do see all those widespread greens, yellows, maybe even some brief flashes of orange. That's going to be where the heaviest rainfall was, associated with some severe thunderstorms. However, we did watch a weakening trend as that line made its way into central Georgia, so we only have some patchy areas of those green shades indicating some totals of 1 inch in nature, and that's mainly over in our western counties, our northwestern counties. You do see a darker shade of blue in northwestern central Georgia as opposed to going over to the east and the southeast, where we're only spotting a couple of patchy darker blues and that one little patch right there of some green just to the southwest of Dublin and just to the north of Cadwell, which we'll talk about in just a second. So let's kind of go county by county. What did you see in the general range of some of these totals? It does look like most areas found themselves below the 1 inch mark, of course, in that blue shade, but farther up to the north, more so we see some totals closer to around a ½ inch, maybe just shy of an inch, around a ½ inch in Gray, ½ inch in Macon, 0.8 of an inch over in Forsyth, but those patchy areas of the green are going to be around 1, maybe 1.5 inches of rain, 2.3 up in northern Taylor County, and down there by Byron in northern Peach County, 2.9 inches of rain. That is the pixel that I could find that had the darkest shade of some green, and that's probably the most substantial rainfall total that we have seen over in Peach County. But very refreshing to see some of these higher totals over to the west, which we'll talk about more in just a moment. But as you go off to the east, those rain chances rain totals do begin to taper off. Only about 1/4 of an inch of rainfall across areas like Sandersville, down to Wilkinson County and Irwinton, and all the way over to Johnson County and Wrightsville. And it doesn't get any better as you move farther down to the southern half of central Georgia. Most areas are going to be around the ½ inch, maybe 1/4 inch of rainfall, but that little isolated speck of some green just to the north of Cadwell, 1.6 inches of rain. So consider yourself very lucky in that portion of Lawrence County. Across Houston County, 1.3 inches over to the east of Perry as you kind of get over towards kind of the more rural areas of Houston County. In Warner Robins itself, about 3/4 of an inch of rain. Fort Valley around an inch, about ½ inch in Montezuma, and then downtown Butler just shy of an inch. And then you can see a couple of those other scattered totals across our southernmost counties. So not a whole lot of rainfall, but it will help put maybe a little bit of a dent or at least prevent things from worsening on this drought monitor, which as of the update last week, we now have 3 different types of a drought and 1 patch of some abnormally dry conditions. So remember those totals in Sandersville and in Washington County, only around 1/10 or 2 of an inch of rain. Well, they don't necessarily need it as much as areas over to the west, like southern Upson County, getting into portions of Crawford, Taylor, maybe Monroe and Lamar counties. Those areas definitely lucked out with the most rainfall out of anyone in central Georgia, and it was very much needed for all these areas that are under a severe or even an extreme drought over in the Thomaston area. However, we do also spot that dark red color, the extreme drought, down in southeast central Georgia, and of course those rainfall totals not really doing much in terms of helping out the drought conditions. But we will continue to keep you updated with the latest update that we get with the drought monitor coming up on Thursday. All of the data from those overnight showers and storms will be taken into account with the newest update because it takes all the data as of every Tuesday, which will be today, and then we are going to get the latest release as we go into Thursday. So for the month of March so far, I do imagine we'll probably get some more totals on the 10th of March, only getting another 5/100ths of an inch to add to our totals. I think we saw a little bit more than that at Middle Georgia Regional Airport. But where things currently stand right now, 1/10 of an inch of rain in the entire month of March, and we're about a week into this third month of the calendar year. Still need a good amount of rain in order to reach that average mark of 4.73 inches of rainfall, which we typically see for the month of March. It's kind of the beginning of getting into that severe weather season, and it is going to be one of our wetter months of the calendar year. In fact, as we get into April, May, and June, I was looking at some of the average totals for those months. They're actually not quite as high as you think, so hopefully we have a good chance of at least going above average, maybe with some more widespread and some more frequent weather systems that come through on about a week-by-week basis. And once again, that record, 1944, 12.5 inches of some rain. So like I mentioned, I think we have a little bit more data to collect as of early this morning, and probably some of the more substantial rainfall totals that hopefully can put us back maybe in the near normal category for the month of March. But your headlines are going to be some near record temperatures, and not just your afternoon highs. That is also going to be for your morning low temperature values, not record low in terms of the lowest or the coldest some of those numbers have been, but maybe some record warm morning lows. Another round of storms going to be possible on Thursday morning, and I do say possible, and we'll talk about why that is. It's not looking like a confirmed forecast where we will see some storms, maybe like what we did see as of overnight last night. However, I do expect most areas to see heavy showers and even hear a couple rumbles of thunder, but we'll try to fine tune the specifics when it does come to maybe your severe weather chances with Thursday's front as well. And then we will be clear for most of the weekend, but as we go into the back half of the weekend and heading into the beginning of next week, we are going to welcome back rain chances into the forecast, and that is going to be because we are warming up very quickly after we do receive a brief cool down after the passage of our frontal boundary on Thursday. So let's walk it around the quad. A few high-level clouds up there off to the east and the northeast of downtown Macon. Downtown Dublin, nothing but blue sky on Warner Robins. And it is the same story here at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. And it looks like the flags blowing a little bit from left to right, indicating that there is some kind of a southerly component to your winds. Once again, as we are facing over to the west, indicated by the big dub that you do see right there in the shrubbery. So that camera view, a little bit fuzzy. We continue to have our fair share of issues with it, just freezing up occasionally, and we'll try to get that fixed as soon as possible. But at least we are able to see what's going on at the Georgia National Fairgrounds. It's just going to be a little bit patchy in terms of the images that we are going to see. How about this? 70s, very, very popular on your current temperature map all across the eastern United States. And not only that, just shy of the 70s in areas like Nashville, Lexington, up to Indianapolis. Remember just a couple of weeks ago, these areas were hovering somewhere in the 20s, the 30s, and the 40s around this time of the morning. Well, now everyone is getting on board with a warmer stretch of some temperatures and not really seeing anything in the way of a dividing line or indicating a boundary, except when you make your way up here into kind of the central Midwest, the upper Midwest, and that's where you do see that fine line of green transitioning into some deep and dark blues. This is going to be a boundary up to the northwest of us, but I don't necessarily think that's going to have any implications with our forecast. We are going to watch a low pressure center somewhere around the Four Corners region of the country, over there by Utah, Colorado, getting down into New Mexico and Arizona. That is looking to form over the next 24 hours or so, and then it will make its push over towards the east. So 71 in Macon, matching the number in Panama City, and just shy of all these mid and upper 70s that we do see in our neighboring cities down in the southeast and as far west as Texas. Scattered 70s all over Texas. 72 in Dallas, 71 in 70, in San Angelo, 76 in Houston, and a 77 in Laredo, but 79 down in Orlando. That takes the cake for the warmest number that we did see. But even when we zoom it in, how about this? Savannah matching that 79-degree mark. 78 in Valdosta, 77 in Jacksonville, all the way over to Mobile. A good mix of 60s and 70s, but predominantly in the 70s down here in the state of Georgia, South Carolina, back over to Alabama. But as you go up to the north and the northwest, areas like Atlanta, Athens, Rome, still hanging around in the 60s. Not often that we do see Atlanta being a little bit cooler than what Greenville, South Carolina is, all the way in the upstate South Carolina. Of course, the most significantly cool air going to be up on the foothills of the Appalachian Mountains. We might need to edit that point in Blairsville because we haven't been getting temperature reports up there in northern Georgia for quite some time, so may need to pick apart a different location that will give us some more accurate temperature readings. Good mix of the 60s and the 70s on your temperature graphic. 66 is the lowest number I spot. That's all the way up in Monticello. 69 in Sandersville and Wrightsville, and mainly around 71 or 72 degrees already. So our temperatures started out somewhere around the 60-degree mark in the low 60s. We've seen about a 10-degree temperature increase so far on this graphic, and that temperature increase is only going to continue and get more and more drastic as we go into the afternoon. There's a little bit of a breeze building in, mainly in northern central Georgia, maybe a light breeze 3 to around 7 or 8 miles per hour. Do see a 10-mile-per-hour breeze down there in Cochran. Nonetheless, the breeze not too much of a factor today, but it is looking to be a factor over the course of your short-term forecast as we go throughout the midweek. And your dew point temperatures, even though we saw that system come through that brought widespread showers and even a couple of thunderstorms, it wasn't in the form of a frontal boundary that was going to sweep all this humidity out of the forecast. We are still going to keep the decently humid forecast over the course of the next couple of days, and that is also going to tie in to portions of my forecast where we do have a few very, very low-end rain chances for the rest of today and going into tomorrow. But it's nothing to really worry about, and nothing that I'm even going to tell you to grab the rain gear for, because it's going to be very minuscule in nature, and that's just due to the fact that we have some humidity in the forecast. So satellite imagery, a few patchy clouds that are out and about. There's that cluster of some clouds we got an image of in downtown Macon. Everyone else looks pretty much crystal clear. There are some clouds up to the northwest of us, but nothing that's producing anything in the way of rain. And it doesn't look like we see anything in the way of rain all across the southeastern United States. We see more cloud cover back over to the west into northern Mississippi. Doesn't look like we see any indications of any widespread weather systems that are going to approach from west over to the east. So 57 degrees. That was our morning low temperature as of yesterday. We started out a little bit warmer than that today, I believe around 59 degrees, and then 83 for a high temperature. I don't know what it is with recording 83 degrees for your high temperature, but that's been a very popular number for the month of March so far. 69, your average high temperature, 44 degrees, your average low temperature. Don't believe those numbers changed. If anything did, I think it was your average low that actually got a degree warmer in between Sunday and in between yesterday. 88, the record set back in 1974. So we were closer to the record than we were for your average high temperature, but still 5 degrees off that 88 degree number. 19 degrees, nowhere even close. We have not been in the territory of record-breaking low temperatures in quite some time, but that is going to be very nice because obviously we had our fair share of winter weather chances towards the back half of January. Let's not talk about anything in the way of some very, very cold weather, especially below freezing and even below the 20-degree mark. So that little bit of rain yesterday didn't really help out your departure. It actually went farther down, so 3.79 inches below where we should be at this point of the year. So we definitely need some more substantial rainfall, but hopefully once we get the data taken as of today, we'll see maybe closer to about a ½ inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe even an inch if we are lucky. That could get knocked down or help knock down those totals and maybe put us back closer to around 3 inches below where we should be, because 3 inches, that's still a manageable kind of deficit that we are going to have. And you could probably get that very likely in one very widespread heavy weather maker that is very possible as we go into this time of year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that we kind of stay within that range. It's not too far below average. And like I said, not too much of a deficit, but we definitely could still use some rain to get that number back and hopefully flip the negative in front of it into a positive. But sunrise yesterday, 7:52 a.m. and then sunset, 7:38 p.m. So once again, be cognizant of that time change, and that did happen as of this past Sunday. So we did see it really early in the morning on Sunday, right at 2 a.m., 1:59 a.m. We saw the clocks jump from that all the way to 3 a.m. And then that set us into the stretch of new sunrise and new sunset times. But right now we're still hovering right there around 11 hours and 45 minutes of some daylight. By the time we roll into St. Patrick's Day on the 17th, that's going to mark the first time that we have more hours of daylight compared to more hours of nighttime. So that's where we are going to get back to above 12 hours of some daylight. Sunrise at 7:42 on St. Patty's, and then sunset going to be almost exactly 12 hours later, 12 hours and 1 minute to be exact, at 7:43 p.m. And then April 9th, as we go into the beginning of the 4th month of the year, that's a couple days past Easter. I do believe, if I am correct, the 9th is going to be on a Thursday because Easter Sunday is on the 5th. So that's going to mark our first 8 p.m. sunset that we will have in daylight saving time, and we'll just continue to watch that time get later and later and later all the way until June 21st. And the sunrise will continue to get earlier, earlier, and earlier. We're actually going to get the sunrise back close to 7 a.m. around where it has been as of lately before this time change by the time we roll about a month into the future. So a lot of things to look forward to if you are a big fan of the daylight. And remember when we were talking about the Almanac just a second ago, don't know what it is, but 83 is a very popular number that we have hit now 4 times in the month of March. We had a stretch of 3 days in a row as we went Thursday, Friday into Saturday at the end of last week. I wouldn't be surprised if Sunday's high temperature got pretty close to that mark too, because we did have a couple sensor issues. So 76, I think, was a little bit below what we actually hit. Nonetheless, 83 degrees for a high temperature yesterday. And we are going to have another warm afternoon today, but I don't have much confidence in making for the 5th day in a row that we could hit 83 degrees. But so far in the month of March, 8 days above average, and then 1 day that has been below average, and that was because of the wedge setup we had last Tuesday. So it was a wet start, and like I mentioned, I don't have confidence that we'll hit 83 degrees today because I think we'll get a little bit warmer. 85 degrees. That is my forecasted high temperature, which is 16 degrees above that average high temperature of 69 degrees. So we are still well above where we should be at this point in the early part of March. And we are going to pair it up with mostly sunny skies, a west wind maybe around 5 to 15 miles per hour, but there is going to be a very minuscule chance of seeing a light shower or a sprinkle throughout the rest of today. And that's just because we're so warm and we continue to have a little bit of humidity that is in the forecast. So we could see some stuff try to pop up and operate off the heat of the day like we do see on a typical summertime day, not a typical late winter day. Yes, it still is the winter season. We are definitely going to have to get a reminder about that just about each and every day, because as we head into the afternoon, upper 70s and low 80s, that feels nothing like winter whatsoever. 82 degrees by 4 and 5 p.m., peaking around 83 degrees. I like to go a little bit above this graphic. You should probably know that by now because typically it does undershoot things in terms of what we top out at. Nonetheless, I think 85 is going to be a very suitable afternoon high temperature, but it is going to be on the warmer side. So if you find yourself doing some afternoon activities outside, make sure that you are hydrating because you can start to get a little bit sweaty. I took a walk around the neighborhood yesterday and I was definitely feeling a couple of drops of sweat coming down the side of my head, and I imagine I'm probably going to feel the same thing later on this afternoon. And also make sure to layer up, or lather up, I guess rather I should say. Put on a little bit of sunscreen if you are going to spend an extended period of time outside later on today. But this is why I continue to have at least a 10% chance of rain on the rest of today, and that's because you are going to see maybe some very small pockets of some green pop up. In all likelihood, once again, you're probably not going to see this rain through the rest of today, but I am going to put that 10% chance on there for those areas that do receive something in the way of a light shower for the remainder of your Wednesday. Going into tomorrow morning, a bit of a gloomy start, partly clear skies, but I still think we'll see plenty of peaks of sunshine. Then we go into the afternoon. Nothing, almost nothing in the way of cloud cover. We do have a few very thin and high-level clouds, not even seeing any of those green dots pop up. But once again, just because they aren't there doesn't mean that we couldn't have the possibility of a pop-up sprinkle or a shower, especially in some of those areas that we do see some passing clouds. Let's go ahead and flash forward to Thursday because this is where all your talking points with Futureview are going to be. And that is because of our next widespread weather maker, which we now have within view. So this is looking to push in, and this has remained really consistent over the last couple of model runs this morning. 5 a.m., that line of rain beginning to push in the form of showers, but also some storms. And those storms are going to be present in this leading edge. Back behind the leading edge, yes, there is still widespread rain, but it's a bit lighter and steadier in nature. So the precipitation rate is going to taper off a little bit after that leading edge does push through. But 5 a.m. beginning its push into central Georgia, maybe a little bit later than that, closer to 6 a.m. Nonetheless, we'll have you covered on Thursday morning all throughout the morning show because it does look like this is coordinating absolutely perfectly. So as this line pushes in, rain chances continue to get more and more widespread from west to east. And then we get to around 7 a.m. The rain chances aren't engulfing much of central Georgia just yet. So I would say if you want to get outside and you don't want to necessarily utilize that rain jacket early in the morning on Thursday, head out earlier as opposed to later, because the later and later that we get to around 9 a.m. when many of you are clocking in, that's when the rain chances are very likely going to be the most widespread. Now we can see some pockets of some darker red, but this isn't necessarily indicating anything in the severe weather criteria. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but I do want to go ahead and hammer down the timing. So 9 a.m. still very messy, even if you are getting a late start to heading out the door, or maybe you have a doctor's appointment on Thursday morning. It's going to be a messy and a dreary atmosphere really all the way until we get to around lunchtime. So I would plan on grabbing the rain gear and having that ready to go for the morning commute on Thursday. But I promise you, just because you need it in the morning doesn't necessarily mean that you need it in the afternoon. Take a look at how quick conditions clear out. 11 a.m. there were widespread rain chances all over central Georgia. 2 hours later, 1 p.m. just past lunchtime, we're seeing almost nothing but sunshine as that rain moves off to the east, but also behind this frontal boundary causing all these rain chances, we are going to notice some pretty gusty conditions throughout the early afternoon hours, maybe lingering a little bit into the later afternoon time frame where those wind arrows still long and yellow, but they are going to subside as we go farther along into the evening and into the nighttime hours. So we'll break down all the specific impacts and in terms of the winds, in terms of maybe foggy skies, in terms of severe weather associated with this, but that was what I wanted to show you first and foremost so we could nail down the timing. As far as our forecast up until we get there, it's just going to be nothing but very warm temperatures. 85 degrees, 87 degrees for high temperatures today and tomorrow. I wouldn't doubt that 87 might undershoot it a little bit. We have been outlined by the National Weather Service that we could make a push towards 90 degrees tomorrow. I'll have to do some research about when our average first 90-degree day is. I haven't quite seen any of the records get quite up that high. They have been somewhere in the upper 80s, but that does give you an idea about what we will be talking about for afternoon highs tomorrow. As far as your morning lows go, no real change. They're going to start out around similar values. However, as we go into Thursday, 55 degrees, it's a little bit off, but I don't think 55 degrees is going to be the temperature that you're walking out the door to. In fact, I think 55 degrees will hit that a little bit later into the morning hours, maybe even the early afternoon, as we are going to see a little bit of a cool down right after that frontal boundary. But I don't think Thursday is going to be kind of a typical day where you hit your morning low in the morning and then you hit your afternoon high temperature in the afternoon. I think we're going to have some of those low temperatures maybe even into the overnight hours before that rain does come in, or maybe just after the rain does come in and kind of starts to clear out a little bit and starts to cool the temperatures down. It remains to be seen, but we'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. Overall, what you need to know is it's still going to be a nice feeling atmosphere to walk out the door on Thursday. Not necessarily going to be a forecast that you want to walk outside without having the rain gear, however. So 10% chance of a sprinkle throughout today and tomorrow. That's nothing to really bank on. That's just to cover the bases because it's a warm and it's a humid environment. Like I said, in all likelihood, you're probably not going to see rain over the course of today and tomorrow. It's just going to be a story of some early summertime temperatures, both this afternoon and going into tomorrow. 70 degrees for a high temperature on Thursday. 80% chance of a shower or a storm throughout the morning hours, because as we head into the afternoon, we're not looking at anything in the way of rain chances for the rest of your Thursday. But 70 degrees, we are going to cool the numbers down after the passage of this frontal boundary. But that's not really a cool down. I mean, 70 degrees for a high temperature, that still feels pretty amazing. And in fact, we are so warm over the course of today and tomorrow that the cool down that we are seeing in between Wednesday and Thursday, courtesy of this front, all it does is knock our numbers back down to around where they should be at this point of the year. So yes, we are going to definitely notice the temperature difference compared to what we have been dealing with as of recently. However, before we get there, we do have maybe some near record warm temperatures that we were talking about. Your warmest morning low value for tomorrow morning, sits at 63 degrees. That was set back in 1973. What I have in the forecast is 60 degrees. So it looks like we are forecast to dip a little bit below that temperature mark, but we could be a little bit above it by the time we are dealing with some of the current observations tomorrow morning. So we'll keep you updated if we break that. But what I have most of my attention on as we go into tomorrow afternoon, that's going to be a record high temperature, which sits at 86 degrees. A little bit lower than what we've seen recently. I believe the record yesterday was 87, the record yesterday was 88. The record the day before was around 87. So it is a little bit lower than that record set back in 1955 for tomorrow. 87 is what I have in the forecast. So it does look like we have a pretty good likelihood of breaking that record high temperature. Now, as far as your severe weather chances, here's your day 2 storm outlook, which goes from 8 a.m. tomorrow morning all the way into 8 a.m. on Thursday morning. So obviously our timing of this system is going to overlap in between 2 separate storm outlooks. But as of right now, we are not outlined in the day 2 storm outlook. The greater risk is going to be over to the west and the northwest for the potential for those strong and severe storms. A lot like what we did see with last night's cluster of showers and thunderstorms that weakened the farther it pushed into central Georgia. And if we pick it up on the day 3 storm outlook starting at 8 a.m. on Thursday, we still don't see any form of a severe weather outlook here in central Georgia. Does this mean severe weather is impossible? Absolutely not. This time of year, anything goes. But we are seeing a weakening trend as it pushes farther and farther into central Georgia because it is coming in during the early morning and right there around sunrise time. That's when our temperatures are the coolest, and it's not going to have as much to work with as it is back in areas over to the west where it will be a much warmer environment that frontal boundary is encountering. But I definitely wouldn't be surprised to see maybe west central Georgia included in some form of a severe weather risk before it is all kind of end all be all. But we will continue to keep you updated. I'm not putting too much stock into it right now, like I was talking to you about with last night's storms that did pass through. But it is going to be maybe a bit of an early wake-up call with some of those rumbles of thunder. Not going to send us too much rain, but this will help continue to supplement the totals that we did get as of last night. So maybe adding about another ½ inch to maybe about an inch of rain at the very most onto those totals. And in terms of the breezy conditions, light breeze out of the west and the southwest throughout the rest of today. It is going to be a windy afternoon tomorrow, so go ahead and prep for that. Some gusts out of the southwest that could be up to around 20 to 25 miles per hour. Then as the frontal boundary comes through, isolated pockets of some gusts up to 30, maybe 40 miles per hour. And on the backside of that frontal boundary, we will continue to have some gusts up to 30, maybe even 35 miles per hour throughout the afternoon on Thursday. But then the breeze does subside as we head into the evening and eventually into the nighttime hours. And this frontal boundary is going to drop the humidity very thankfully. Take a look at your Futureview fog graphic where we could walk out to a bit of a fuzzy image tomorrow morning. But then after that, the only thing limiting visibility is just going to be the heavy rates of rainfall itself on Thursday morning. And then we go all the way into your Friday, and we are not seeing really much in the way of fog build in. Maybe some areas to the northeast of us, but finally a morning that we can at least dodge some of that limited visibility out and about. For your allergy monitor, I do expect the tree pollen and the grass pollen to still remain at least moderate levels, but the tree pollen is really what's running rampant. And as we go into Thursday, I would anticipate the levels to be a little bit lower, just given the fact that we are going to get some rainfall to wash away some of that pollen. That's what you're going to be very thankful for in the way of rain this time of year as well. It will wash away anything in the way of that yellow film. So I'm going to go ahead and skip these graphics because this is going to tie into your 7-day forecast, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I want to go ahead and get into what we're talking about over the course of this weekend with the long-range models. There's a bit of a sneak peek about what we're welcoming in the weekend with, and that is going to be some significantly drier air. Friday, any afternoon evening plans looking good to go. Looks splendid as well as we go into Saturday afternoon and evening, but rain chances return on Sunday as we are going to receive a pretty quick warm-up, but not anything that's looking like a all-day washout to close out the weekend. So Sunday plans may just want to have the rain gear ready to go in case you need it. And then as we go into Monday, we're eyeing another frontal boundary that will begin its push down into the southeast. Doesn't look like it has a lot to work with down here in Georgia, but that is also going to reinforce our cooler and drier air. And we have the potential as we go into next Tuesday to see the morning low temperatures get around freezing temperatures. So I know a lot of you might have started prematurely planning things like crops, maybe something in the way of some flowers, you're going to want to make sure that you do take care of those plants as we go into the beginning of next week. Going to go ahead and give you a warning right now, but it's not popping up on your 7-day forecast yet. Just go ahead and plan on Tuesday morning being a pretty chilly one, even a downright cold one. So I had to skim through that kind of fast, but 7-day forecast. The next day to look out for, grab the rain gear on Thursday morning. We'll receive a cool down back to around average for the numbers, and you're really going to notice it Friday and Saturday mornings where the numbers do get into the 40s. Very quick warm up into next week, and then another front arrives to keep the numbers in check and drop them back down and maybe give us a brief taste and a reminder that it is going to be winter. So that's going to be it for your extended forecast.